Welcome to the Pokescast. Ryan Thorburn here with the Casper Star-Tribune, joined by Robert Gagliardi. Robert, it's been a couple weeks since we've recorded the pod. I did kind of a crazy thing and made my way in a big circle from Laramie to Boise to Eugene to Logan and back to Laramie. Covered a couple games, spent a week on the West Coast. So back in Laramie now, and we're getting ready for the season finale here as Wyoming hosts Hawaii. So we have a lot to talk about, Robert. Where do you want to start? You want to start back with the CSU game, which we didn't really recap, or the Boise State game, or just go right into Utah State?
Well, I think we first got to mention that, that Wyoming's won a couple of games since our last podcast. So at least we're off the schneid with that, at least. I hope, by doing this podcast leading into the Hawaii regular season finale on Saturday, that we're not the jinx or anything, but it's kind of, to kind of summarize in a nutshell. I mean, arguably you take, other than the Ball State game in the non-conference, the CSU and the Utah State games were by far the best games this team has played this year. And then you sandwich that with the game at Boise where, if they don't make mistakes on offense, and more than anything, penalties. I know the interceptions certainly hurt there too in the second half, but they don't have penalties. They're giving themselves a chance to win that. So, although that was really disappointing, the way they lost at Boise and the way that it kind of went down, this team's playing some pretty good football, and it all kind of came to a head last Saturday in Logan, where I won't lie to you, Ryan, I didn't think they were going to go in there necessarily just get their doors blown off. But the Cowboys they dominated them. I kept looking at the scores and I'm looking at this and I'm like, what? And they just dominated them. And I certainly didn't. Some really good Wyoming teams have gone into Logan and maybe won, but certainly didn't dominate. That one really, really surprised me.
Yeah, I actually picked Wyoming. I know we didn't make that on the record in terms of a podcast, but I had a feeling they were going to beat Utah State. I mean, it's a tale of 3 seasons, and it's really been strange. Obviously, the first 4-0 start since 1996. If you look at it now, the Montana State game is a good win. They're one of the top FCS teams, even though they did lose to Montana for their second loss of the year. So that was a good win. And Northern Illinois is, near the top of the MAC. So that was a good road win. And we saw the offense with a different quarterback have explosive plays in that game. And then obviously you get into the funk with the Air Force game, the 10-quarter streak of not scoring an offensive touchdown, 1-5 in Mountain West play. But this third season here, this last leg of this season has, in a lot of ways, been more impressive than that 4-0 start. You mentioned, they blow out Colorado State. It's not a good Colorado State team, but that's a good way to get back on track, is to beat your rival and run the ball like they did in that game. Kind of set the tone for what we saw last week. And then you're right, the Boise State game, I had never covered a game there before. I can see why it's such a difficult place to play. It's just different. They play a lot of times on weeknights, which that game was a Friday night. They have really good crowds. They just have a tradition and a belief, and Wyoming seems to play them close and finds a way to lose, and that's what happened in that game. But it was just, they were so close. The score didn't end up being that close, but they were driving down 6 with a chance to win the game, or at least take a 14-13 lead there in the closing quarter. And if you recall, I believe it was Swin, or could have been Valde, had a really nice run about down to the 30-yard line, and an official threw a flag from about 30 yards away of a holding called. So next play, Levi's in a passing situation, ball gets tipped, interception, pick 6, and that's all she wrote. But I think that frustration from that game, and realizing that Boise State's playing some of the best football in the Mountain West, and Wyoming had a chance to win that, I think that set things up last week where Wyoming was angry. Wyoming's coaches and players knew that they had to get to 7 wins to get to a bowl in all likelihood. Utah State was coming off a blowout win at San Jose State. And it just set up where Wyoming was kind of in desperation mode and really caught Utah State napping and then just bludgeoned them. The better team that night was Wyoming by far.
Yeah, really kind of spoiled Utah State's chances to win the Mountain Division, although they still had a chance. But you look now and you look, I've heard fans, I'm sure you have too, Ryan's like, after the Utah State game and even after the Colorado State game, it's like, well, where's this been all season? Well, I think I get your take on it, but, they've certainly been able to run the ball a lot more consistently in those wins, and Levi Williams has played some pretty good football, but, and look, and I don't want to take that away. And he was really good against Utah State. But look, Ryan, Levi Williams, what did he throw? 15 passes against the Aggies? Obviously, when you have 200-yard rushers, that helps. But I still think in whether it's Levi Williams now or it was Sean Chambers earlier in the season, this Wyoming team is at its best when the quarterback only has to throw 15, maybe 20 times a game. If either one of them, now it's Levi Williams, has to throw 25, 30 times a game, I'm not saying he's not capable of doing that, but that's not how this team is built. And so I think Wyoming's been able to kind of, dictate, kind of play at its pace, kind of like you would hear like in a basketball game. It's kind of more methodical, tempo, so to speak, although there were a lot of big plays against Utah State. But I think that's Wyoming's, recipe for success, so to speak, is run the ball well, set up the play action. And again, I want to give Levi Williams credit. He really has been throwing the ball pretty well, especially against Utah State. So I do want to give him credit. I don't want to say that it's a fluke by any stretch. But we'll see if they can do that against Hawaii, because you've mentioned, I know Craig Bull even mentioned that Wyoming was a lot bigger up front than Utah State. Well, that's not going to be the case against Hawaii. Now, granted, Colorado State scored 45 points on them, so size doesn't mean everything. But it's a new set of challenges for this Wyoming team against Hawaii on Saturday. But, what's your take? Is it just getting back to what, run the ball? They have forced a few more turnovers, obviously, too. What's in your take, Ryan? What's your take of this turnaround in this last 3-4 games of the season?
It's funny how you phrase that, because Craig Bull's post game after the Utah State game, I asked the first question. My question was, where has this team been? And he kind of laughed and he said it's been a long time coming, but that he was seeing those signs that it was coming. Obviously, the Colorado State game, and then, even the Boise State game, this was coming. And, you're right. Levi Williams played probably the ideal game that Craig Bull wants his quarterback to play, 12 for 15 passing. But just because you don't pass a lot doesn't mean you can't have an explosive offense. We had 242 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and the 1 interception was questionable in terms of Wyoming felt that could have been a PI, and it was a brilliant catch by the safety. So that's what they want. And now that you have Joshua Cobbs kind of emerging as a number 2 to Naor, I think you'll see in that range, that 15, 16, 17 attempts per game, as long as the ground game is rolling the way it is. And obviously, when you have Valladay, the experienced Valladay, who looks fresh to me, that was kind of his plan going into the season. His goal was to play in all 12 games and to finish it strong. And he looks really good making some of those cuts. And I think the big reason why is because Titus Swin is carrying a lot of the load and obviously is a extremely explosive player. The 98-yard touchdown is the longest run in Wyoming history. I don't know if you were at the Central Michigan game where they had a 95-yarder back in the day.
I was covering that game. Yes, I was. Yes.
So that was the longest one. And then, speaking of explosive plays, Cam Stone with a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown really set the tone that they were ready to trade punches with Utah State, because Utah State's offense actually got off to a really good start in the first quarter, and it was 14-14. But, Wyoming's ability to hang in there and trade punches and then really beat him up with their defensive line as the game went on, it got out of hand quickly there in the third quarter. I mean, that's that's the best quarter Wyoming's probably played in a long time, that third quarter. I think they had 240 some yards of offense just in that quarter.
Right. So great win for him, a chance to get to a bowl game. I know this season hasn't gone like I think a lot of fans and certainly players. I know a lot of players, Ryan, we talked about it early in the season. They wanted to win a Mountain West championship, but they have still a chance to, win their last home game, get to a bowl game and keep playing. So we'll see if they can carry that forward. But I want to kind of talk about the whole Valladay Swin thing. And, Valladay's had a good year, and he had 145 yards against Utah State. Maybe that was the quietest 145 you may ever see from a really good running back, your second leading rusher in school history. But, I thought Swin had a chance to be a really good running back. I saw glimpses of it a little bit, and then what he's done. But do you like how they've kind of rotated them, how they've used that combination? I like it, but sometimes these guys are a little, I don't know, you're around the team, Ryan, is Valladay a little myth that he's maybe not getting as many touches? And certainly Swin is certainly deserving the touches that he gets. I mean, what's your take on that combination right now?
Yeah, I think Valladay is the opposite of miffed. I think he's just a tremendous team player. In fact, I talked to him on Monday, and I'll have a story that's either posted now, this is Tuesday night, or it's in Wednesday print. This is going to be it for Valladay. He's a fifth-year senior. He's number 2 on the career rushing list at Wyoming. And because of the COVID year, he could come back for a 6th year of college and try to get Brian Hill and try and, keep it going. But, from what he's thinking right now, Saturday will be his last home game for Wyoming. And he sees that Titus Swin is ready to be a star, that McNeely is ready to be part of the featured rotation. And they have some freshmen that are really good, or they believe are really good. And he's been in college 5 years, and he's ran the ball a ton, and he's not going to get faster next year. It's his time to go to an NFL training camp and see if he can latch on. I think he's a great college football player. It's hard to predict with running backs if they'll stick in the NFL or not. I think when you see him getting caught from behind against Air Force and stuff like that, maybe scouts will hold that against him. We'll see what his 40 time is, during the process. But I mean, what a great Wyoming football player he is, and what a great leader and what a great mentor. And to willingly want to share the load with Titus Swin. I mean, people should read the story and just about how he was telling Titus on the sideline against Utah State, man, you've really come on, and he's really happy for him. And, so I think this will be Swin's offense next year. It's a run first offense. He'll be the guy, assuming he comes back, of course. You never know in this day and age, but what a player Valladay is. I hope people will check that out and check out his last home game.
I hope so too. And it certainly doesn't surprise me that he's had that reaction, Ryan, because even being around him when he was kind of emerging as the next really good running back at Wyoming, that doesn't surprise me at all. But you know how football players are sometimes, and even running backs for that matter, they want to get into a rhythm. You get more carries, the better they get. And you got to keep guys fresh. And it looks like, I'm from an outsider, it looks like that combination is working wonderfully for Wyoming, but I was just kind of curious. But it certainly doesn't surprise me that Valladay has that take. And, I'm excited to continue to watch him, and you get to watch him one last time. So, hopefully fans, I know it's a holiday weekend, can get out there and not just see Valladay for the last time, but see, a lot of guys for the last time for senior day. And, again, handful of players can come back. What other players, Ryan, do you get a sense that obviously we know Chad Muma's not coming back? You're the one that said this. I know Craig Bowl came out this week and said, he's going to declare for the draft because he accepted the Senior Bowl invite, but he accepted that invite last week. You even said that, by accepting that, he's basically not coming back. So no surprise, but, you get a sense of any other guys that could come back next year for another year. Will they or not? Do you have any sense of that yet?
I think most of them are going to be moving on. I don't think Wyoming's the type of program that's going to, I'm sure if certain seniors wanted to come back and, run it back, I'm sure they're not going to say no, but I just get this obviously Garrett Krall is a super senior. He's done regardless. Muma's going to the NFL. The offensive linemen they have some super seniors there as well, so they're gone. So I don't think there's going to be. I'm sure there'll be a couple guys that take advantage of it and maybe come back, but most of these guys have had their fill and had their run and have their degrees. And I just this week I talked to Muma last week, but I did a big profile on Muma that I hope people will check out. It runs in print on Thanksgiving, but it's already online. Talking to his grandfather who played at Wyoming in the 60s, and obviously his dad, Ty Muma, played in the early 90s for Roach and Tiller. I mean, just that's the thing about it. And I've only been covering this team, for 3-4 months, but the senior leadership on this team, it's surprising that they went through such a struggle with this type of leadership, but it's also the reason why they've held it together and are still fighting to end on a high note. And, Muma is an all-timer in my opinion. Wow, what a guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's just amazing to watch. And, I don't want to make comparisons to Logan Wilson, but man, I mean, Muma's all over the place, like Coach Bowles said, he's big, he can run, he tackles well. I mean, he's got, I'm not an NFL scout or not even going to pretend to be one, but that kid's got a bright future and just a lot of fun to watch. I'm going to miss seeing him play for Wyoming, but I'm going to thoroughly enjoy watching him play on Sundays for whatever NFL team that gets him.
Yeah, you mentioned Valde quietly at 145 yards rushing. I mean, you look up at the end of the game and Muma has 17 tackles, and it's like they're not that noticeable because he hits guys and they're down and the play is over. It's over. I mean, if he's in the vicinity, it's over, and they add up quickly, and you just look up at the end and it's 17 tackles.
And that's 17 tackles. I mean, you see those kind of numbers like if you're playing Air Force, when you're playing an option type team, those linebackers and even safeties, they get a lot of they can put up some big numbers in tackles. I mean, Utah State throws the ball all over the place. I mean, this was I guess in this day and age in college football, a traditional offense, no fluky, not anything like that. And he still records 17 tackles. I mean, he gets them in pass coverage. He blitzes, great in run defense. I mean, he's an every down linebacker, Ryan, and you don't see that. I don't care where you're at, even in the Power 5 leagues, you don't see a lot of those, every down linebackers anymore, and he's certainly one of them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing that they've had Logan Wilson, Cash, Malawiya, and now Muma in such a short period of time because normally Muma would be playing 4 years as a starter at Wyoming with that type of talent. So it's incredible that he was able to be mentored by a guy who's the first pick in the third round. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes higher than that. So you kind of just circling back, I'm just kind of looking at these seniors because you mentioned would any of them come back? I don't know about Azizi Hearn. I think he's probably just going to graduate and test the waters. He's played a lot of college football at Arizona and Wyoming. I think he's shown out pretty well this year. So you might as well go give it a shot at the next level if you're him. Just looking through here, would a Victor Jones come back, do you think? He's done some good things, but he's not really dominated maybe with Krall leaving, with Bird coming back from injury. Maybe that's an opportunity for him to really flash next year, although Jalen Pate is coming on, who's a sophomore, so I don't know how they feel about that. I was wondering about Asias Gandy. Obviously he's a senior but played a lot of football, but with these neck stingers not being able to play down the stretch here, is that something that can get better for next year? Would he come back? Because he looked like an NFL player to me when healthy. But I've talked to a lot of people that have had neck stingers, and it's just a reoccurring, painful thing that is hard to deal with. Trying to think of who else. Rome Weber is listed as a junior, so I assume he will be back. So, like I said, I think most of the seniors will be gone, but the only ones that might be interesting are some of the offensive linemen, Naboje. Does he come back and run it back again? I will say this about the offensive line. Some of the younger guys that have been playing, Bible and Watts and Stouffer at times, they're going to be fine there. I think the younger guys have kind of helped get this thing rolling these last 3 games.
Yeah, I don't know. We had talked about during their offensive struggles, Ryan, about where the problems were. And again, I know a lot of the attention was going to the quarterback at the time, and deservedly so. But I do think the offensive line was just out of sync, with such high expectations, maybe the best in the league going into the season and stuff. And I don't know what happened, Ryan. I don't know if they've simplified things or if they just figured a few things out or whatever they did. But even against Boise, I thought they played pretty well as well. So, I don't know what necessarily happened, but, I guess it's good to be playing your best football near the end of the season. And I do think this offensive line is playing its best football at this point of the season.
So you kind of touched on Levi Williams. It seems like he's getting better week by week. He's a third-year sophomore. But when you look at if they can keep this skill set together, if they can keep Swin, if McNeely, runs, the small sample size of McNeely is really impressive. With a large sample size, that could be exciting next year. Bull mentioned DQ James a lot during fall camp, a freshman from Texas who is probably the fastest guy on the team. And then you look at Nayor, you look at Cobbs, you look at Welch, Parker Christensen. Man, if you can keep all these skill players together, and I hate to say it, but with the NCAA transfer portal, you just never know. Would a Nayor want to go to Oregon or a school like that, or will he just stick it out and ride with Levi? I mean, you can get to the NFL from Wyoming, obviously, and he has a great rapport with Levi, but obviously he is a guy that Power 5 schools should have recruited. But if they can keep that group together, this offense could be maybe the strength next year, which would be hard to have said after that New Mexico game.
And it could be. And, what's really interesting is Levi Williams, and look, we saw glimpses last year. And obviously, we talked about this, the Arizona Bowl in 19, where he got the start and made some big throws and helped Wyoming, to kind of cruise to an easy victory. In the COVID shortened year last year, heck, he was hurt most of the time and probably actually shouldn't have been out there. But I've talked to him, when I covered the team, I talked to him a decent amount, and I know how hard he works, not just while he's, in off-season workouts, but even on his own, and I'd really like to see, and this is no slam on Sean Chambers, I just feel bad that Sean Chambers has gone through what he has, but would you say, Ryan, is it fair, even though it's only been a few games, that this is Levi Williams' team as far as the quarterback situation goes? I mean, yeah, you still got Sean Chambers, and he's certainly proven he's won games. He's got a winning record as a starter. That's a nice luxury to have, is 2 experienced quarterbacks, 1-2 on your depth chart. But is it safe to say that right now this is Levi Williams' show? Is that fair?
I think that's fair, and I think it's earned. And you never know what was going to happen, but in my opinion, as a amateur Monday morning quarterback, they should have started Levi for New Mexico. He should have been the number 1 guy going into that game. In my opinion, they win that game with Levi Williams, and then he's further along for the San Jose State game, and maybe they win that game, and then things are totally different. But better late than never, I guess. And I think he's played. Sean got off to a good start. I mean, that Northern Illinois game was an offensive explosion, and he was a big part of that. He had the 2-minute drive against Montana State. He, it was a short field, but he had the go-ahead scoring drive at UConn. Tied things up at Air Force with 2 quick explosive drives. And then for whatever reason, I don't know that we'll ever know, or if he can even tell you what happened. mentally after that with the turnovers and just the lack of confidence and the lack of production. It got away from him, and Levi has taken advantage of this opportunity. I would expect Levi to find a way to beat Hawaii, and if they can go to a bowl game and perform well, they have that momentum they had from 2019 all over again with Levi again. And I would say he would be the starter. I don't think it would be a true competition in the spring and fall with Sean Chambers. In fact, I would not be surprised if Sean Chambers tried to play somewhere else.
Be interesting to see how that turns out. I know, you mentioned the transfer portal, Ryan, and certainly, it's a whole new frontier, although the portal's been around for a while, but at least with Wyoming football, I mean, they've had guys transfer certainly and stuff, but it's not like they've had a mass exodus of players transferring that are playing at higher levels. They've had some guys that, have gone to the FCS level or this and that, but it's interesting. You just never know from year in and year out how that's going to be, but I will give Craig Bull some credit that since this portal thing has been going on, yeah, they've been hit. They've had guys transfer, but it's not like it's been at a lot of other schools. And it'll be interesting with some guys you mentioned and going into this offseason, if it remains that way, does it change? We'll have to wait and see. But it's always interesting. It's always nice when you could say, you got all these guys coming back and everyone's excited. But the whole transfer portal puts that at least fans at edge because you just never know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting with the numbers, obviously with all the everyone getting an extra year, how many recruits are they going to sign? Will they add people from the portal? I would think not many, but maybe one or two that they recruited that are in the portal now that they're like, oh, that guy's available again. He should have came here in the first place. Let's go get him again. It's interesting. I think I agree with Craig Bull's philosophy. This is a developmental program. You're recruiting 2- and 3-star guys and developing them, and then it's their turn. And you're not going to look for the quick fix with junior college or the transfer portal. I get that. I believe in that, and I think you can actually zig while a lot of Power Fives are zagging and get some good high school players while certain Power 5 schools I know of are recruiting less high school players and saving the room for those portal guys, those experienced, unsatisfied portal guys that are unhappy in one place and show up at your place and they're ready to play because they're older players, they're talented players, and what their strengths and weaknesses are already. So that'll be interesting, and we can talk more recruiting next month when that gets really heated up. But I want to transition, while I have you here, Robert, on Wyoming basketball. I mean, Jeff Linder, I think we saw signs last year that he was going to be a good coach at Wyoming and he would build it and maybe follow that Colorado State model where year 2 is better than year 1, year 3 is really good, and year 4 you're ready to make a run in the NCAA tournament, which is kind of what Colorado State's path has been. But wow, Wyoming appears to be way ahead of schedule. 4-0, won at Washington in overtime. Washington is not a great Pac-12 team, but they do have talented players. And then follow that up with a win at Grand Canyon, which I think is the more impressive win because of the momentum that program has, the atmosphere of their arena. It's a crazy place to play. They were an NCAA tournament team last year. 4-0 with 2 true road wins. I saw someone, I think Jeff Grammer from Albuquerque tweeted that Wyoming has 2 of the 3 Mountain West true road wins this season, at least going into Tuesday. What a start for Wyoming.
Yeah, look, the first 2 games, kind of expected Wyoming, or you at least think we're hoping that Wyoming would kind of just take care of business and stuff, and they certainly did. But look, man, I don't care who you're playing. You go on the road and win 1, let alone win 2. You'll take it. And you look, the Washington, they gutted that out and against Grand Canyon, right? I mean, they were getting killed on the boards. They were down. They weren't down big, but they were down late. Usually a lot of times, how many times have you seen that, the home team's kind of going back and forth or even behind, then you get a lead late. home court advantage kind of kicks in a little bit and you pull away for, 7 to 10 point win. Well, Wyoming didn't let it happen, even though it got killed on the boards. They found a way to win. And, look, Graham Ike and, Hunter Maldonado have been great, but, there's been other guys. Jeremiah Oden's been, glimpsing there. I really like this team, Ryan. Again, I don't know what the rest of the season is going to hold. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm not ready to start ordering my Mountain West Conference, championship T-shirts quite yet, but I'll say this: the rest of the Mountain West better take notice that Wyoming's not going to be a pushover. I don't know how many games it's going to win necessarily in the Mountain West or where it's going to finish, but they better not take the Cowboys lightly. And if anything, you might want to get them while you can now, because as you said, Jeff Linder's building something. The way things are going, it looks to be trending in a very positive direction that's going to keep getting better down the road.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say they're not going to finish tied for 8th, which is where they were predicted. It's a good league this year. I mean, Colorado State, in my opinion, is a top 20 team. San Diego State the same way. Nevada's off to a rough start. They have a lot of talent. They've been the big disappointment in the league so far. I think they won tonight, but I think they are 2-4, 2-5, something like that. So that's a disappointment. But Fresno's 4-0. UNLV and New Mexico are improved. I don't think they're contenders. Air Force is improved, but I think they're still near the bottom. So that's going to be a fun league race. Especially, I didn't like last year when teams, would come and play 2 in Laramie, back to back in Laramie, and because of COVID, and then Wyoming would have to go to San Diego State and get slaughtered 2 games in a row. I like the home and home, the round robin nature of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you mentioned Graham Ike and Hunter Maldonado, and those 2 were fantastic on this road trip. But you're right. Oden is much improved, and they all talked about that, and he's looking at the part. And then Drake Jeffries, who I thought was just a 3-point shooter, has been rebounding like crazy, and then hit the shot of the game last night. Down 1, I think, or down 2, he hits a 3, and that starts the 8 unanswered points to end the game. Really an impressive finish to silence. I have a friend, Brett Hansen, who works in Phoenix for Fox Sports, and he was at the game, and he said the atmosphere there, it's crazy. So to silence that crowd in that manner is really impressive. And on the Zoom afterwards, Jeff Linder pretty much threw down the gauntlet and challenged Wyoming fans. Not necessarily you're going to recreate that club scene down in Phoenix, but he challenged them to get the AA rocking again. That's why he came here, to bring it back and get the AA rocking. And he said this team deserves that kind of support. And so far, I would agree with it.
Agree too. And another thing that's been really, I don't know, necessarily surprising, but that I think has helped Wyoming get to the point where it's 4-0 is, you talk about the scoring. Everyone likes the offense, and I get it, but they've really played defense. I know you've written about it, Ryan. I know a lot of others have too, that Jeff Linder in the offseason really, and the staff, it really emphasized if Wyoming wants to take a step forward in the Mountain West, it really has to, it has to start on defense. And so far, the defense that this team has played has been very, very good. Again, can they keep it up? What'll happen in conference play? But so far, so good. I mean, I'm sure Jeff Linder, he's a coach like anyone else. He's going to find stuff this team needs to improve on. And there is, don't get me wrong, but it's all right to work on those things when you start off 4-0. And like you said, with two true road wins, you'll gladly work on those things. So I'm excited. I think, that the excitement level seems to be building or growing for Wyoming basketball, Ryan, and that's great because it's been an awful long time since there's been a lot of excitement for Cowboy basketball.
Yeah, and just FYI, Friday night, 7:00, they play Hastings College, so it's a major step down in competition, but it is here in Laramie. That's an opportunity to, if you happen to be coming down for the Hawaii game early or whatever, that's a game where I would expect, they've been going with a pretty small rotation, to pull these games out. I think that's maybe a game where you could see, some of the new faces get extended playing time and just kind of keep the momentum going. And then they have another road game at Cal State Fullerton. So kudos to Linder for putting together a really good schedule. And, I'd imagine, their KenPom must be going up, up, up. And it's only going to keep going up in the Mountain West with the way teams are playing. So that'll be fun to follow. Let's move on to our final regular season of Mountain West football, Robert. And we're both hovering around 500 in our picks for the year. And this is our chance we're a little under 500. I think we're both about 16 and 18 and 1 or something like that. I can't remember what we pushed on, but there was one push. But so let's have a big winning week and roll into the bowl season on fire here.
But first, Rent, are we picking the Wyoming Hastings College game? Is that on the docket this week?
I don't have a line on that one. I think it's Wyoming by 41. I'll take Hastings. All right. Thanksgiving Mountain West football. Okay. I think Detroit playing Chicago. I mean,
yes, they are.
So you might want to give this a shot if that's as bad as it advertised. Fresno State -7.5 at San Jose State. Thanksgiving Day, 1:30 p.m. Fox Sports 1. Fresno State, believe it or not, if they beat San Jose State and Boise State beats San Diego State, Fresno State will be in the Mountain West Championship game as the West Division winner. What do you see happening here? The Spartans need to win to be the 8th bowl eligible team from the Mountain West?
Yeah, I've always thought San Jose was really close, but Fresno, I just like Fresno. I know this is a rivalry game, and that's a lot of points. Well, it's not a lot. It's a touchdown. My gut's telling me to go with Fresno there. They have a chance to take care of business. Maybe San Jose rises to the occasion. I'm going to just say I'm going to take Fresno and Fresno to cover. I think they get this one by about 10 points.
Yeah, I'm going to take Fresno as well. I don't like the way San Jose State is playing. Wyoming really should have played better and beat them. They have no home atmosphere. It's awful. It's the opposite of Grand Canyon basketball.
Yes.
So I am going to take Fresno State, and that will be wild to see what happens. And let's get to it now because it's a Friday game. Boise State, probably the hottest team in the league, -2.5. Yes, Boise State is favored over number 21 San Diego State. That's a playoff ranking. Number 21 San Diego State. 10 a.m. on CBS. So they get the national billing here, a name brand in Boise State and one of San Diego State's best teams of all time. Can the Aztecs finish this thing, or are the Broncos going to upset the apple cart here?
So it's a 10 a.m. start Mountain Time. So they're going to kick off at 9 in the morning in San Diego.
In Carson, California.
In Carson, actually. where they're until their new stadium opens. That's weird, but you know what, Ryan? I Boise is playing better, but look, this is San Diego State. This is in their wheelhouse. They're at home. They have a chance to cap off a really special season. Now, if they win this game, no matter what anyone else says, if San Diego State wins this game, they're the West Division champions, correct?
Correct. They would have one loss. Fresno has 2.
There's too much on the line, and they're getting basically 3 points at home. Yeah, I'm taking San Diego State in the points here.
All right. I am going to go with Boise State. I just think they're the type of program you cannot get rid of. They're going to spoil San Diego State's greatest season and finish maybe in a freeway tie, maybe with a chance to win the Mountain Division somehow. Boise State, they don't go away. It's annoying. It'll be better for the Mountain West if San Diego State just wins. And just in the event that Cincinnati were to lose and not be the champion of the American, there's a chance that San Diego State would be the highest ranked group of 5 champion. That's the key phrase. Cincinnati would still be ranked higher, but San Diego State would get the near 6th bowl because they're a conference champion. So That's what the Mountain West is rooting for.
There's a chance. There's a chance of that still.
Also on Friday, Utah State minus 15.5 at New Mexico. It's hard to believe that Wyoming beat Utah State and lost to New Mexico. This is in Albuquerque, 11 a.m., Fox Sports 1, also on Friday. Are the Aggies going to get it back together and win and go to the Mountain West Championship game?
Well, one, I'd like to know about Utah State's quarterback because, following you, it sounds like Wyoming hurt him. They beat the crap out of this guy.
Yeah, they did.
Look, New Mexico can't score. I think they're down to their 19th quarterback or something. Maybe Rocky Long still has some eligibility left because he was a quarterback in New Mexico in the late 60s, early 70s. Maybe he has some time, some late eligibility left, but they don't have anyone to play quarterback, Ryan. So I got to think Utah State bounces back. They still have a chance to, have a good – and I think because all the goofy tiebreaker situations, they don't control their own destiny. The Aggies can still get to the Mountain West Championship game. So I think they bounce back. I know Rocky Long is a great defensive mind, but that can only last so long. If you can't score, really even have a threat to score, I got to go with the Aggies to cover that.
Yeah, from what I understand, obviously Utah State beat Air Force, so they have the head-to-head there. But if it's a three-way tie, I think Boise State goes. And then if it's just a two-way tie between Boise and Utah State, Boise beat Utah State. So I think they're going to, Bonner, I don't think it was a serious injury, but he just couldn't run anymore. He just came up lame. He was hit so many times, once by Pate, once by Muma, where he just could barely get up. I have a feeling he was in the ice tub all week, and even if he can't go, I think they could win 17-0 and cover this. So I'll take Utah State as well. And let's move on to Saturday. UNLV running Rebels plus 18 at Air Force, 1:30 CBS Sports Network. Air Force obviously in the mix with Boise and Utah State to get to that championship game. They lost. Utah State beat Boise State on the blue turf. Are the Rebels going to be spoilers?
No. Although, hey, they've won a couple games since our last podcast, Ryan. So maybe I know they're making progress. I know it sounds like they could have another quarterback change. That's kind of been, they've made some strides, but the quarterback issues are still there. I just think Air Force will just, at altitude at the academy, I think Air Force rolls. Maybe UNLV scores some points, but I know that's a big number, Ryan, but I'm going to go with Air Force to cover that.
I am too. I think UNLV competed hard this year. Like you mentioned, they won 2 in a row, and then they really pushed San Diego State last week. But I have a feeling they're either out of gas and or not prepared to stop the option. They're in the other division. They don't see it every year. I just have images of what Wyoming's running attack did to them last year. I think Air Force wins comfortably and probably is wondering why they didn't beat Army the way Wyoming's wondering why they didn't win some of their games, because it could have really been a special season if they play for the Mountain West Championship and had that Commanders-in-Chief trophy. So Nevada, -4 at Colorado State, 7 p.m., CBS Sports Net. Steve Adazio. What's going to happen with that guy?
I don't know, man. This one's kind of a head scratcher because Nevada should win their talents, but again, CSU. Even though we said this a lot this season, CSU's got good players, man. Maybe their coaching's but Nevada should win this game. But it's senior night. Maybe it's Adazio's last game. I don't know, but this one scares me, Ryan. But I always try to go with my gut here. And I hope it's not like, that's something bad I ate for dinner tonight, but I'm going to go with Nevada to cover this because they should. They're better. They're much better than Colorado State. But a part of me just wonders if Trey McBride's going to go off and something fluky happens and CSU pounds them. But I'll go with my gut and I'm going to say Nevada will cover that.
Yeah, I think there's a little fishy with the line. Nevada should be favored by more than 4. So I'm going to go with Colorado State. I think McBride gets 18 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they at least cover. It'll be interesting to see if Adazio is at the border war next year, though. I mean, they're not like a Power 5 team that can afford to pay for their mistakes, but that is not a good situation.
No, doesn't sound like it.
All right, the finale at the war, Hawaii +10 at Wyoming, 1 p.m., Mountain West net, senior day, chance for Wyoming to win their 7th game and go to a bowl. Hawaii held on for, 50-45 over Colorado State. I think they were up 26 and kind of fell asleep at the end there, but they did get their offense cranked up, obviously, and they do have a nice offense. So the Warriors get the pleasure of flying from Honolulu to Laramie in consecutive years, and this time Thanksgiving week, no less. What do you think about this line, and who you picking?
Look, you look at what Wyoming did last week, and you think, oh yeah, no problem. But man, that still scares me, Ryan. Because you mentioned Hawaii's got a nice offense. The Cordero kid, quarterback's very good. We saw Wyoming struggle even against hapless New Mexico with a running quarterback. And again, that was a little while ago, so things have kind of changed. But well, maybe it's the homer now. I guess I can call myself a homer now. I guess I'll go Wyoming to cover this. I'm not feeling I think Wyoming wins. I don't think Wyoming loses, but I think it might be closer. But I'll do the homer pick, and I'll say Wyoming covers that 10 points and gets to 7 wins.
I think Wyoming wins in blowout fashion. I really do. I think, like we talked about, this is their time. The first 4 games were their time. The middle 4 to 5 were a disaster, and now they're back. I think their leadership, as we mentioned, they want to go to a bowl game. They want to finish with, potentially 4 wins in 5 games to finish 8-5. So their seniors are going to be emotional and ready to go. I expect Chad Muma to dominate this game. Trib.com. Check out the Chad Muma story. And we'll talk to you next week, Robert.
Sounds great. Are we transitioning into hoops after this, or post-game football? How are we doing this? How are we going to do this?
Well, I'm willing to keep it going if you are, my friend.
Absolutely, man. I enjoy this a lot. I missed it, and hopefully now that we can do one of these and actually have a Wyoming win next week. But if Wyoming can't get this one, we're gonna have to talk, off the record, so to speak, and see if we can get something figured out.
And, with Wyoming basketball being relevant, and there really is no offseason in college football anymore. Wyoming could be going to a bowl game. They're going to be signing a recruiting class. There's the transfer portal. All of a sudden there's March Madness. All of a sudden there's spring football. So we're going to dial up Robert and bother you all winter if that's okay, buddy.
I'm more than happy to do it. It's never a bother. Always a pleasure. All
right. If you're still listening at this point, you're a great podcast listener, and we appreciate you. And we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.